Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into this incredible, totally essential connection between us and the world's pollinators. It's really a story about these tiny guardians of our ecosystems and how their fate is completely tangled up with our own. So yeah, let's get right into it. So let's kick things off with a number that'll kind of blow your mind. $577 billion. That's the estimated value pollinators add to global food production every single year. We're talking about things like coffee, chocolate, almonds, apples. So many of the foods we love are almost completely dependent on the work these little guys do.
So that leads to the big question, right? If so much of our food and our economy relies on them, what actually happens when they start to vanish? It's not a hypothetical question, and as we're about to see, the stakes really couldn't be any higher.
And that question is really the heart of our first section here, a shared fate. Because this is so much more than just some abstract environmental issue. We're talking about our own survival, our well-being. It's all directly connected to how well these pollinators are doing. Now, this chart really drives the point home. Over 75% of the world's food crops depend on pollination in some way. Let me put it another way. Think about your dinner plate. About 3 out of every 4 bites of food you take, well, you can thank a pollinator for that. It's just staggering. And here's the thing, it goes way beyond just our food. When pollinator numbers drop, it starts this devastating domino effect. It threatens about 90% of all wild flowering plants. And then the birds, the mammals, and all the other creatures that depend on those plants, the whole system starts to unravel. It really is the foundation of so much life on Earth.
Okay, so let's get into the crisis itself. We're calling this section the crisis in the hive. Because, honestly, what's happening to them is basically a mirror reflecting our own choices back at us.
You've probably heard this term before, colony collapse disorder, or CCD. And it's as scary as it sounds. The worker bees from a hive just disappear. They vanish. And it's not just one single thing causing it. It's this deadly cocktail of pressures: pesticides, disease, losing their homes, and climate change. And it all traces back to human activity. And this really lays out the main culprits. You've got these pesticides that can literally scramble a bee's brain so it can't find its way home. You've got habitat just being paved over, wiping out their food and shelter. Then there's modern farming, with these huge fields of a single crop, which is like a feast for 2 weeks and then a desert for the rest of the year. And on top of it all, climate change is messing up the timing, so flowers might bloom before the bees are even ready. This comparison just makes it so obvious. On one side, you have what they need: a diverse, natural habitat. It's a nonstop buffet of different flowers, tons of safe places to live. But on the other side, you have a monoculture farm. Sure, it's a ton of food for a very short time, but after that, it's an ecological desert, and one that's often drenched in chemicals. This quote really just hits the nail on the head. Their decline isn't just a sad story about bees, it's a huge warning light flashing on the dashboard of the entire planet, signaling these deep systemic problems that, if we don't fix them, absolutely put our own future at risk. Okay, but look, this isn't all doom and gloom. Not at all. This is also a story about hope and about empowerment. So now we're going to pivot and talk about your impact right in your own backyard and how you can actually become a guardian for these little guys. And you know what's great? The things we can do are actually pretty simple, but they have a huge impact. Planting native flowers gives them that season-long buffet we were talking about. Going chemical-free in your garden creates a safe zone. Even something as simple as putting out a little dish of water with some pebbles in it helps them get a drink. And don't forget, building a bee hotel helps out all the solitary bees, who are also amazing pollinators. Oh, and maybe the easiest one? Just let some of those dandelions grow in the spring. It's one of the first food sources they have after a long winter. So, doing stuff in your own backyard is fantastic. It's a huge start. But to really solve this, we've got to think bigger. We have to scale up. And that brings us to our collective responsibility, which stretches all the way from the garden to the corporate boardroom. So, who's on the hook for this? Well, pretty much everyone. As you can see here, governments have a huge role. They can regulate harmful pesticides, like the EU did with neonicoteninoids, and they can fund projects like Oslo's amazing Pollinator Highway. Then you've got corporations who can shift to better farming practices. And, of course, NGOs are on the front lines, pushing for change and doing the research. It has to be a team effort. So, if we actually did all this, what would that future even look like? Let's just take a minute and imagine a future where we don't just try to save pollinators, but where we actively decide to coexist with them in harmony.
Just picture it for a second. You're walking through a city, and nature isn't something you go to in a park. It's woven into the fabric of the city itself. Rooftop gardens are everywhere. Green corridors for pollinators are just standard parts of city planning. Life is just thriving right in the middle of all the concrete and steel. And then take that vision out to the countryside. Instead of those massive, eerily quiet fields of just one crop, imagine farms that are actually healing the land. Farms with a mix of crops, with wildflowers, with trees. Ecosystems that are literally buzzing with the sound of life. And what if we took it one step further? What if this thinking was just part of our everyday lives? Imagine going to the grocery store and seeing a Pollinator Impact Score right on the food you buy. Suddenly, we're all empowered, every time we shop, to make a choice that helps protect them. Because when you get right down to it, their fate is our fate. The connection is just undeniable. There's no separating the two. So the only question left is the one right here. Knowing everything we know now, what future are we going to choose?